Ladies and gentlemen of the AMC, we'd like to welcome you guys to our stream. I'm DJ Just J, and we have a very, very special guest on my show. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with No Limit Records or if you're familiar with the history and all of that good stuff. But right about now, they have a documentary going on BET Network. Shout out to BET, by the way, with the No Limit Chronicles. They're telling the story about the history of one of the biggest, I would say, Southern music movements, ever in history, and really just in music in general. They did a lot of things, but one thing that most people don't know is kind of how you create this entire movement. It's not just something that happens overnight. It's not something that only one person does or anything like that. It is a collective of moving pieces, and what I wanted to do was try to capture as much of that as possible. One of those individuals who is, in my opinion, responsible for some of the things that you guys got a chance to experience is the gentleman on my screen. This is Tobin Costen, otherwise known as TC. How's that?
How you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself, brother?
I'm doing great. I mean, wow, I feel like I'm a star or something. You just know how to take care of people. That's all I know. You know how to take care of people.
Brother, it's an absolute honor, man. And if you guys are not familiar with him, he does a lot of things. Like, I don't want to misquote anything that he does or what he represents. Would you like to kind of give people an idea about your position, not only in life, but with pertaining to No Limit?
Well, absolutely. My name is Tobin T.C. Costen. I am a former executive vice president at No Limit Records, also a business manager and personal manager for Master P. Currently, I am a professor at a small university in Oakland, California called Holy Names University, Go Hawks. And I also am an entrepreneur. I have my own business. I have a company called Psycho Cider, do hard cider out here in California, as well as, I have my own platform, the Costen and Hammer Network, CHN, that I'm actually using with a partner of mine named Josh Hammer. And we are raising money for the Special Olympics. So that's pretty much what I got going on right now in wonderful, too hot California right now.
That's awesome, man. What an awesome thing. Like I say, not only to have been a part of so much that we know as history, but then the stuff that you got going on now, I definitely wouldn't expect anything less for you to be just doing some amazing stuff. And also, film producer, yes?
Yes. I am definitely a film producer and an actor. I have a movie called The Reverend Do Wrong Ain't Right. It's right now on Amazon Video Prime. It's Prime Video. Last year it came out. It did really well. It was in the top 20 on Amazon. So I was happy about that. And now, as a gift to the world, I just put it up for free on YouTube. So if you have YouTube and you're on YouTube, just look up The Reverend Do Wrong Ain't Right, or look up the Costen and Hammer Network, and you'll see it right there on there for you to watch and enjoy. It's a funny movie, and I think people will enjoy it because there's so many different actors on there that you will notice and you will recognize. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. And if you don't mind, with your permission, do you mind if I just show the trailer? It's really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. You can show the trailer. It was produced by myself as well as the producer of Friday, W.E. Baker. So he produced the first Friday movie with Ice Cube. So it's a treat.
All right, guys, without any further ado, I don't think I have to play the fair usage in this case. So here we go. I'm going to just go ahead and throw this on the screen so you guys can take a look. Reverend Do Wrong.
From the producers of the cult movie classic Friday, Reverend Do Wrong is the new hit comedy that will have...
Let me make sure I can make it big so you guys can see. So there we go. All right, here we go.
From the producers of the cult movie classic Friday, Reverend Do Wrong is the new hit comedy that will have you in stitches.
And now, brothers and sisters, it's time to start your morning off right and not wrong.
Starring Def Comedy Jam comedian Lester Bibbs and Tobin Costen.
Gentlemen, you know that gambling is against everything I teach on a Sunday morning and against the law. One more set of boxcars. I'm telling you, one more set of boxcars and Daddy can go home a rich man. Oh, come on, give it.
We want to ask our good friend, Reverend Do Wrong, to lead us in prayer.
Feel.
Featuring platinum recording artist Yo-Yo.
How long have you been with
Like I told you before, about 5 years now.
Introducing Hercules and Big Time from the Nutty Professor and Old School.
You know what I'm saying? See, we can get the ladies, because you know that's no problem. See, little check it. When we start hollering at the ladies, you know his legs over shoulders, boy. You know I can feel me. Can you feel me? Leg over.
Co-starring Bill Lee Brown and Victor Tagunde from Can't Hardly Wait.
My Rosie Greer knitting class.
Do you want that station manager position or not?
Look out for this hilarious hit on iTunes and Amazon On Demand, because the Reverend just can't do right.
Your host, Will He Do Wrong?
Reverend Do Wrong Ain't Right is coming in the summer of 2018.
All right, and I'm gonna tell you guys, just so y'all know, full disclosure, I did get a chance to watch it while I was out in New Orleans. Even more special to me because of where I did it. But I thought it was extremely funny. I mean, it brings in your attention, but I thought you guys did an awesome job on that.
I really appreciate it. I think when you start to write ideas and you write the story and you say, hey, this is what it's going to be, and you see it and you bring people that really know how to make great movies, like Bill Baker, W.E. Baker, for someone to do a movie like that's iconic like Friday, and to say, yes, I'll work with you on this project, I felt really happy about what we came up with. And I'm looking forward to do another project with him, hopefully in the next couple of years. COVID kind of slowed down everything for everyone. So I'm hoping maybe 2021, 2022, we figure this thing out and do the next movie.
Awesome. I definitely can't wait. And again, you guys can also check that out, not only from Amazon, but you could also check it out for free on YouTube. It's a very easy thing to do. And while we're speaking of free, one thing that is free for you guys to click that thumbs up. Please share this live stream. Let other people know that we're live, who we're talking to. Come check us out. Also, for you people watching on a replay, make sure you guys leave your comments. Here's where I would love to start with you as far as how does this story start with you and No Limit and Master B? How does this whole thing kind of come into fruition?
So back in 1992, I'm a radio DJ and at a college radio station, Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington. So I hosted my own show on the radio station there, KAGU. It was a show called The Rap Attack. So the funny thing is, I was doing a show, and it was so long ago, I don't remember who it was. There was a rapper who was supposed to show up, and he kind of flaked on me pseudo the last minute. I think I had a couple of days. And I'm talking to my godbrother, kind of venting, and he says, hey, I know this guy named Master P. He's got this project out. No one really knows who he is. He's got he doesn't really have a big following, but man, he's a hustler and he's always trying to do shows. You should see if you can get him to come. I'll talk to him. So my godbrother talks to him, and then we get us on the phone, and I say, hey, come, can you do the show? And he shows up. So, and at that point, he kind of paid for his own way to come up. I was able to put him in a hotel and feed him and do some stuff like that. But he came up and we absolutely hit it off. Did some songs. The show turned out pretty well. We had this thing where we set up where we had, DJ and mixing. I was mixing a little bit. And then we had him come on and perform. And it was fun. Now, I don't know if the world was really, say, hey, great, this is great music or anything. But it was really cool because, at that time in Spokane, Washington, nobody was really understanding hip hop, and I was the only one spinning hip hop, so we had a great success. So Master P and we had a good relationship from there, and we just kept in contact. So he would send me records, and I'd play them on my radio station or my radio show, and I would promote for him and do all that stuff. So in 1993, he had asked me to come on board and do promotions for him. So I started doing promotion, anytime a project came out, do promotion. And I'm working for No Limit Records, and things are going well. So in 1994, and before that, and I don't know if people are familiar with, there's a gentleman named St. Charles. He's E40's uncle.
Yeah.
So St. Charles taught E40, Be Legit, myself, P, a rapper named JT the Bigger Figure. There was a rapper named Sibo. He literally taught all of us the music business, how to run a record label, how to do distribution, how to get your pre-orders up, how to make sure you get paid, how to go get the money. So I was promoting some records and stuff for saying or playing them on my radio show. And in 1994, he is the one that told Master P and said, hey, Tobin's a good guy. He's sharp. You got some things. You guys together could be unstoppable. You should make Tobin your manager and have him run the label. And at that time, almost immediately, P said, hey, I want you to manage me. I want you to run the label. You've got a lot of ideas, energy. Let's go make this thing happen. I think we could be the biggest thing in the world.
Right.
And that's how we came together. So in 94, prior to us hooking up, so between 89 and 93, P probably put out 16, 17 projects. And they all were albums, but they were singles. And if you watch the Chronicles, they kind of mention that he put out some projects that not necessarily would be something you put out. It would be something that you probably would, maybe be a demo, but maybe not even be a demo. But he was just dropping projects.
So it's kind of like the modern day equivalent to mixtapes.
Correct. He was instead of just being online, because we didn't have that back then, it was dropping them in the stores. And at that time, No Limit Records, or it was really the record store, and P was putting out records, but he's probably selling 80, 100 tapes, maybe 120 tapes. So there wasn't really anything going on as far as high volume. Not a lot of people knew who P was. If you hear people talk, a lot of times it was stuff that, people just weren't interested in. So in 1993, when I came on board, I was still playing the music on my radio show. I was still going out promoting and getting, passing out T-shirts, doing that whole process to kind of build things. And we did an album called Who's the Killer, the TRU album. So it was like Master P, King George, Big Ed, Sip the Shocker. So we put this project together. So in 94, when I became the head of the label and I became his manager, we put together an album called The Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me. So The Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me, if you've seen that album, it's King George, the rapper King George. He's sitting in the window, and he's got a gun in his hand. And Master P is in bed with this woman. And King George was imagery of King George is the ghetto, and Master P is about to get killed because he got caught up with this lady in the bed. And that album came out, and that was the first album that I was in charge, where I was the manager and I ran the label. It was about building the story, because the story was the important piece that was going to tell everyone who we are and what was going on. Now, whether we got lucky or unlucky, at the time, there was this young kid, I think he was 19. He was unfortunately robbing people. So he was robbing liquor stores, robbing people at the ATMs, and he eventually got caught. So what happened when he got caught, he told the police that the reason why he did it was because Master P's song on The Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me called 211. And in the song, P talks about 211, 211, rob a liquor store. So you want to talk about, the world of life imitating art, that's what happened. So once he said that, and they interviewed him in the newspaper, and he interviewed him on this kid on TV, and it said Master P is 211 is what made me do these robberies. The album became an immediate success.
Wow.
People were buying it because they wanted to know, like, what's going on.
Right.
So understand, prior to that, there was minimal distribution, selling 100 tapes at a time, not really having success, but putting this album out that was really well done, that was more of a professional album, and then the whole thing with the 211 in the newspaper and the TV made the album kind of shoot up and shoot out the door, and people were buying that. So during that time, we put a couple other projects out that were successful, but Master P had this idea that he wanted to take all of the popular rappers on the West Coast and put them all on one project together and call it the West Coast Bad Boys. Now, the great thing about that idea, if you were from a particular town and you were popular and someone else was from another particular town, it's like you co-signed for each other. So with all of these artists on there, they co-signed for Master P to say, hey, Master P is a cool dude. He's down with us. And it was kind of something special. Now, the one thing is, P came up with the idea for the album itself, putting it together and having these guys all on it. But I came up with the idea of putting his name on there, Master P Presents. So even though it was a compilation for the West Coast Bad Boys, and the West Coast Bad Boys was the group, Master P's name was on top. And with Master P's name on top, people would think it was a Master P record.
Okay.
So we put all of these popular rappers like Rappin' Forte, JT the Bigga Figga, C-Bo, obviously people in our camp like King George and Silk the Shocker. All these folks are on this album, and they were really popular on the West Coast. And we dropped this album, Master P Presents the West Coast Bad Boys. Master P Presents the West Coast Bad Boys sells an incredible amount of units. And what was so amazing about this, we were on the Billboard charts. So imagine from 1993 I start to 1994, we go with The Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me. We put out a couple other projects that had success. And then we put ourselves in a situation where we put the West Coast Bad Boys out, and we are on Billboard charts.
Right.
So No Limit Records, P said in the Chronicles, it wasn't an overnight success. It wasn't. But that West Coast Bad Boys really put us on the map and got people excited about who we are and what we're doing.
Nice.
So at that time, when the West Coast Bad Boys was out, we put out, a couple other projects. One of them was called High for Christmas. It was West Coast Master P Presents West Coast Bad Boy High for Christmas. It was basically talking about living in the hood, being from the hood, but getting high while doing it. And it showed King George on the cover with this whole beard and white beard, and he was Santa Claus, and the guys were smoking weed around him. It was a funny cover. So that project had a lot of success. So the next project we wanted to do was we wanted to have Master P have his coming out party. And the coming out party is like, okay, we're on Billboard charts with the West Coast Bad Boys. Master P Presents the West Coast Bad Boys. We did the West Coast Bad Boys High for Christmas. We had worked with Lil Rick. We had all these projects that were hot, Dangerous Dame. And now it was time for us to show the world the Master P project. And this album was called 99 Ways to Die. So we put this record together and this to me is one of my favorite albums, No Limit albums, is because we got these different producers with different sounds on there to do this album, and it made the album sound, for lack of a better term, more professional. It was a good sound. It was good music. It was really good producers. Master P got better at rapping. King George was money with the hooks. So it was like all of these people coming together to make this Master P album, which was the 99 Ways to Die.
Right.
So once we did that album, we had the 99 Ways to Die. It drops, and we put it on Billboard charts. Like, it's huge. It's literally, I think we were at 40, 45, 46 on Billboard charts. Now, while the West Coast Bad Boys was out prior to dropping 99 Ways to Die, we were traveling. We're kind of doing the road show to all these different record companies because people were interested in Master P because Master P Presents, he's the leader of these West Coast Bad Boys guys, so people were interested. We were already promoting TRU album. We were promoting King George. We were promoting Silk the Shocker. We were promoting the Down South Hustlers. We were promoting all these albums. So anyone who's a No Limit fan, if you open up a CD, you'll see all of the No Limit records that are coming out. That was our entire concept. We wanted people to get excited about our projects, and they knew they were coming.
Well, I can tell you this from personal experience. I know that's like a nostalgia thing for me right there, because every time I went to go buy one album, I'm like, okay, I got this one. You're happy about that project. Then it's like you open that thing, you crack it up, and it's like, what's coming out? Man, and I said it all on my calendar. Oh, man, yeah.
Yes, it was like an accordion. You'd open it up, you're like, oh my God, how many albums do these guys have? And what we were good about was always promoting the album before and having the artwork done and talking about what was next and all that stuff. That was all about our focus. So people would be going to the stores waiting for the next project. So at that time, we were traveling. We're going to New York and LA, trying to figure out what, we're going to sign this deal and try. We wanted to get a deal. So there were two major companies. There were several companies offering us deals, but the two major ones were Big Beat Atlantic in New York and MCA in Los Angeles. MCA offered us $500,000 advance plus I think it was like 12% of the record sales. And Hank Shockley, and I don't know if people know who Hank Shockley is. If you know of a group called Public Enemy, he is the individual who created Public Enemy. He's one of the folks that was behind the Flavor Flav and Chuck D movement. He also produced Ice Cube's first album, America's Most Wanted.
Oh.
So he was well known, and he wanted to do a deal. Big Beat Atlantic, there was this record executive called Craig Coleman. He wanted to do a deal, and it was a $750,000 deal, but it was 10 years. So both deals were, it was a lot of money, especially you talk about 1995, right? It's a lot of money. So what we did, P wanted to sign with Big Beat Atlantic. That was his thing. He's like, man, I want to sign with Big Beat Atlantic. It's important to me, and he wanted to do an artist deal. The reason why he wanted to do an artist deal, he wanted to get the $750,000 and invest it into No Limit Records. No Limit Records was always the focus, but he wanted to kind of fall on the sword, if you will, and say, hey, we're gonna sign this deal. I'm gonna sacrifice the Master P name, and we're going to put all of our money behind Silk the Shocker. At that time, Silk the Shocker was a young, good-looking kid. He could rap. The girls liked him because he was good looking. The guys liked what he was talking about. He was doing different styles. He was saying the things young people wanted to hear. So that was important to P and also to me. I said, okay, if this is what we're going to do, we're going to roll it. Well, P wanted to sign, and I was like, I don't know. Now, the money was enticing, and I was excited about that. And really, the two people that were excited more than any of us was King George and C Murder.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after I read the contract stated it was a 10-year deal, and yes, we're going to get $750,000, and the deal was for, I believe it was 14%.
Okay.
And that's 14. You're getting 14% of your album, and at that time, it was probably pretty good because most people were getting between 6 and 12 or 8 and 12%. So, C Murder literally wants to beat me up because he's like, you're screwing us at 750. You're crazy because I'm saying no, we're not signing this. So when I read the contract says that Master P doesn't own his name or likeness. He can't rap on anyone's record unless the company gives him permission. So I tell P, I said, well, you understand if you sign this deal,
you'd be giving up a whole lot.
Yeah. You will definitely be giving up a whole lot, but you can't even rap on the label that you're trying to put money into to blow up, right? So C Murder says, man, that's not what the guy said. He didn't say that. And I told him, I said, look, I don't care what the guy said. What's in the contract's in the contract.
Yep, because that's all they're gonna use in court.
Exactly. So we don't sign the deal. King George and C Murder want to kill me. Master P is like, are you sure? And the one thing about my relationship with Master P, we had a really good one. He would always say to me, are you sure? Because you're gambling with everything we got. That was like, we'd have that anytime was something that wasn't popular for him or something that I said, he would say, are you sure? You're gambling with everything we got. Mm-hmm. So at that time, I said, I'm 100% sure. So then we dropped the 99 Ways to Die. That was kind of, we're rolling the dice. So what my thought process is, yeah, we're going to drop this album. It's going to be huge because I knew it was really good. And we're coming off the West Coast Bad Boys and the Hyper Christmas, and everyone knows who we are. And I'm thinking we're going to blow this thing up big. P was like, okay, I'm with you. And he believed in me, and we went that route. So we dropped the 99 Ways to Die. It goes to the charts. I think it's like 46, 44 on the charts, Billboard charts. And That's when Priority Records, because they had talked to us before, but they really weren't feeling our vision. They said, hey, we want to talk to you. So we knew about Priority Records because there was a producer and a rapper named EA Ski who already had a deal with them, and then he kind of talked to us about them. So they knew who we were by that time. And then what do you say? You know, you got, I think the West Coast Bad Boys were in the 60s or 70s on the Billboard charts. Then we popped the 99 Ways to Die was in the 40s. And then they were like, okay, we want to do a deal. So when we sat down and negotiated, we did an 85%, 15% split. So we as the record label got 85%. Priority as the distributor got 15%.
Okay, wait. So you're actually talking about the famous deal that a lot of people have heard about.
Correct.
Okay.
So at that time, we negotiate, we sign 85, 15%. So they're asking, what's the next album? So they took the 99 Ways to Die because on that cover, the 99 Ways to Die had P with two guns in his hand. He's smoking a cigar, two guns in the hand, his shirt's off, and everyone was all about that cover, and they got it. Well, when we got with Priority, we're going to ship more units and all that stuff. We changed the cover. P's in the sky. He's looking up in the sky, and then there's a hearse with triple gold Daytons, and he did this wonderful song, kind of an ode to his brother. His little brother got killed, Kevin Miller. It was called "When They Gone." And then and I think it was one of those things that was kind of heartfelt and was popular, and we did a video, and it just, things started to take off from there. So the question was, what is your next album? Well, the next album was True, TRU, and the name of the album is called True. So P and I knew, like, we needed to put everybody who was on, put them out, so we could start building their names up even bigger, because everyone's waiting on these solo projects, but everyone would really build their names up so we can drop those albums too. So we did the TRU album, and we're rocking the record, and we're putting these albums together, and we're writing them in record time. P goes down to New Orleans. So he goes down to New Orleans. There's a couple things. He gets with Mia X and wants to sign Mia X. He, meets with Servon and KLC and talks to them about coming out. And he does I'm About It. Now, I'm About It is a record that everybody knows, but at that time, P records like a 1-minute jingle for Q93 Wild Wayne. It was the intro to his show. So he would talk about who's about it, are you about it, in everywhere, and then he started naming off the 3rd Ward and the different 7th Ward and the 9th Ward. So he started naming the wards off. So people started to want to listen to it like it's a record, and it was one of those things. Well, dude, it's a jingle. Mm-hmm. So P comes back to the West Coast and he says, "Hey, I want to sign these artists." I'm like, "Okay." We put this deal together. They're going to come out. We need to get them out here on the West Coast. I went and got got an apartment for them. So at that time, it was Mia X came out, Servon came out, KLC came out, and Moby Dick. So they all came out and they lived in that apartment. So I signed all the paperwork, did all the stuff, put the deposit down, and had them in the apartment. And at that time, that's when they were recording. We started doing beats and tracks, and we're going to the studio, and we were just nonstop recording. So the I'm About It, which is just at that point a jingle, I'm listening to it, I'm like, man, this is a hit record. And he says, are you sure? Are you sure? I'm like, I'm telling you, this is a hit record. We're going to start talking about everybody's about it. They're going to love it. And then they go back in the studio on the West Coast in California. KLC, fattens the track up and makes it into the I'm About It that the whole world knows. Okay. So we talked about putting I'm About It on the Down South Hustlers. We talked about putting it on on the Down South Hustlers or the Ice Cream Man. But we're like, no, we need a hit record for TRU. Now, TRU album was really good, but the I'm About It song put it over the top. So we took that record Him and me X did a verse each and a hook, and I'm about it. Talk about everyone's about it. He shouts out King George and Silk. He shouts out my manager TC's about it.
Yeah, he sure did. I forgot about that.
Yeah, everybody got their shine on there, right?
Yeah.
So we put that on the TRU album, and we dropped that album. It hits Billboard charts. So at that time, usually when you drop an album, you got to wait 90 days to get paid. You don't usually get money right away. And we were doing okay, but, financially, we had a lot of mouths to feed and we're doing a lot and we had to figure something out. So Priority's happy. They're like, wow, first record's hot. I'm about it's hot. They said, well, what's your next project? But they had wanted the Down South Hustlers because it almost like we gave them True because we wanted to get that out because we know if we got True going, then we hit the Down South Hustlers, and by the time we got the Ice Cream Man, the game is over. We're going to be the biggest record company in the country, and that's kind of how it came into fruition. So they said, well, hey, we need this Down South Hustlers, and at this time we were still recording, right? We're recording. We had some of the songs, not all of them, but we had some of the songs. So Mark Cerami, who is the president of sales at Priority, he was the president of sales and partners with Brian Turner. He said, well, what is it going to take for you guys to get this Down South Hustlers? We need it right away. Everyone's clamoring for it. And understand, we had already promoted the Down South Hustlers, so people were waiting for it anyway. So we said $250,000. You give us $250,000, we're going to be able to knock this thing out and finish it up.
Okay.
Well, they gave us $250,000, and they said, we'll give you this, but you're going to have to give us 5%. So we said, okay. It was 80% for No Limit, 20% for Priority. We got the money, and then that was the thing, what we were able to do, how we were able to bring UGK out to the West Coast to produce records and songs for the Down South Hustlers. That's how we were able to get 8 Ball MGG and get PKO, CCG, and the Dayton Family, and 8 Ball. So all those folks, that's how we were able to do that.
Okay.
So at that time, Down South Hustlers were getting that done. We're recording the Ice Cream Man at the same time. We're recording Mia X had a single, and we were doing her EP. So we were just recording like crazy and putting all of this together. So we were going back and forth between the West Coast and Down South. So understand that Master P and I have a great relationship. King George is like his best friend. And we were things were rocking and rolling. We're on the Billboard charts. Everyone's happy with what we're doing. We're about to blow up. So we're down in Louisiana, and we're kind of going back and forth. So we decide we're going to throw this party. We used to throw these pool parties and different parties down in New Orleans. So we threw this big party, and it was like, and then I think we did the party, and then we're doing a bikini contest, and we're doing all this stuff, and UGK was performing, we're performing, and we just did this show. So at that time, and I don't know if people know who Big Ed was. Big Ed was a member of TRU originally, and then he had his own success as Big Ed the Assassin, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He was starting to have a relationship with P's cousin, and they wound up getting married. So, I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He started having a relationship with P's cousin. And I don't think P really liked that. And I think there was a challenge with that. And, anytime when you deal with family members, that could be difficult. So we throw this party. P says, hey, let's go to LA. And I said, hey, man, I've been away. I've been away for a long time, for weeks on the road. I said, I'm going to go home for a few days. And then when you're done in LA, just meet me up there. So I think the New Orleans folks, they stayed another day or two, and then they came out. And when I say the New Orleans folks, I'm talking KLC, Moby, Mia, Servon. They come out. And Ed I get a phone call from Ed, or I think I get a page from him, and I call him back. And we had pagers back then, so we didn't have phones. And Ed says, P left me in New Orleans. I was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? P left you in New Orleans. He's like, no, he left me in New Orleans. There's no ticket for me. So he's furious. Big Ed is upset. He's like, I can't believe he do this to me. He's so upset. So P and I talk. I called P and I said, what's going on? You left Ed in New Orleans? What are you doing? And he said, well, if he wants to do his own thing, he can just stay there, or he'll find his own way home. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that. He said, well, you do whatever you said, you do whatever you got to do, or whatever you want to do. It's on you. You decide. I said, well, I'm going to fly him home. He's like, all right, cool. So I fly Ed home. Ed's furious at P. And it was like, he was mad because, you go from New Orleans, it's probably about a good 4-hour, 5-hour flight from New Orleans to Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you have to stop somewhere and you got a layover. You're fuming because you feel that, P left you stuck, and he did. So he shows up to Oakland. I picked him up from the airport, and we were talking, and he's just like mad. He's so mad. And I said, just calm down. We'll figure it out. He's like, no, P, did me like this. I can't believe it. Man, I'm leaving the group. Well, I had said, well, I don't want you to leave the group. However, if you decide to leave the group, I will help you. That was the conversation we had.
Okay.
So the next day, we go to lunch. So it's myself, him, and King George. Just go to lunch like we would do on a normal day, if we're around. P was still out of town, and King Ed and I went to lunch. So the entire time, Ed is still furious. We're like a day later, he's still furious.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, F this, I'm leaving the group, F this, my money's not right, yada, yada, yada. Just kind of furious. And King just said to him, King George, he said to him, like, look, he says, we've gone this far with it, I'm going to ride this thing out. And he said, if my single, our solo projects are coming, if things aren't right, then that's a different conversation. But we've gotten this far with Tobin and P. We're going to keep this thing rolling. So, again, I reiterated, hey, look, if you're looking to do something, I don't want you to leave, but if you are, I will help you. That was the entire conversation. Mm-hmm. So he said, well, I'm going to talk to P. And I said, well, okay, that sounds good. But King said, man, leave me out of whatever problems you have with P because, I'm riding this thing out. And I said the same thing. I said, look, my relationship's different. P's a partner. I manage him. I run the label. I'm like, we're good. Now, understand, anything that I would do, or if I was doing it, if I made a buck, P's going to get a piece of that because we're attached at the hip. That's how we work things.
Right.
And so what happens is he says that, and we say, look, leave. We don't want anything to do with it, but we're going to support you. Because like you would do anybody. He's your boy. We know him. He's our boy. We're going to support him. So he's like, nah, it's nothing to do with y'all. Nothing to do. I'm going to get this straight, blah, blah, blah. I need to get my money, and I'm leaving the group. So I'm like, whatever. So somehow P and him have a conversation, and I think it's a day later, P calls me. He wants to meet me at like 10 o'clock. And I'm like, okay. Now, right after P called me, King had called me. King George. He called me, and he said, man, P is mad. I said, yeah. I said, he wants to meet at 10. Why? He says, man, he wants me to do you something. He wants me to, basically saying he wants me to beat you up. Mm. And I was like, for what? He said, well, Ed jumped the gun, told him all this stuff that we're trying to leave and start our own thing and do this. I was like, what is he talking about? Now, understanding this, P and I had never had an argument ever. 3 years together, basically 2 years as his manager and running the label. We never had an argument. So my thought was, well, okay, this is a big misunderstanding. That's not what happened. We're going to talk to him, and it's cool. So he says, hey, P wants to do this. I'm not, King George, that is. I'm not going to let this happen. You never did nothing to us. You've always taken care of us. I said, well, look. I said, no problem. I'm going to talk to P. We're going to iron this thing out. Don't worry about it. So I knew nothing physically was going to happen to me because if King George wasn't going to do anything, the rest of those guys they would take his lead on that. they wouldn't just jump me or do anything like that. So when P and I get together, we have a conversation, and he's very animated, very frustrated. He kept telling me, I want my company back. I want my company back. I said, well, what are you talking about? I haven't stolen any company. He's like, no, I want my company back. I don't want you trying to take artists from me. I want my company back. So we talk about this for several minutes, and I'm like, dude, and he's so animated and so frustrated. And I'm like, man, what are you talking about? I said, I'm not going anywhere. What are you talking about? So anyway, he says, look, I want my company back. You go your way, I go my way. So the conversation we had was, okay, and I said, okay, if that's what you want, but there's money owed. So at that time, we had $200,000 in credit card debt that I was responsible for that had my name on it. So I said, well, we got this $200,000 credit card debt, and there's another $200,000 that's owed to me for record sale. Now, the record sale piece of it, yes, I'm owed, but the problem of the other piece of the credit card piece, that's a quantifiable number that's owed, that are expenses that were owed for No Limit Records, but I was held responsible for that money. So he tells me, don't you worry about that credit card. I'm going to pay that credit card. I'm going to pay what I owe you, and then that's it. We squash it. We're not going to work together. I'm going to go do my thing. I'm taking my company back. I said, okay. I said, you going to pay the credit card, pay me, we're good. He said, yeah, that's it. We're done. So he leaves. I leave. And that's, and it's the group because Ed's with them and all these people. And Ed's standing there, and Ed's not even looking me in the eye. Like, it's crazy. So it went from never having a fight to that's it. We're done. Right? So I go home. I'm thinking I'll never see those guys again. I'm going to get my $200,000 credit cards and all that stuff paid and get that squared, and I'm getting another $200,000. So I'm gonna go start my own label then. I'm like, okay, well, that's what we're gonna do. If that's what you think I'm trying to steal the company from you, I'll go start my own record company and go from there. And there were companies that I was working on publishing deals and doing stuff like that. And I know P a couple times like, man, you're working on these publishing deals and you got to come through me. And I'm like, well, what do I got to come through you for? Like, I'm setting the deals up. You're still going to get a piece of the pie either way. So I don't even know why you're worried about it. And I think there was something that happened before this whole Big Ed thing. There was $75,000 was missing from the bank account. So he calls me up. He's like, you wrote a check? He had said something about about me stealing money or something, $75,000. Okay. And he was like, did you write a check for $75,000? And I'm like, no, I would never write a check for that much without talking to you. And generally at that time, if anything was more than $30,000 or $40,000, I'd have a discussion with him. Right. If it was less than that, I would just take care of it. And afterwards, I'll say, hey, I just wrote a check for 20 grand for this or whatever it was. I would never write a check for 75 grand. So here's the craziness of that story. So a year prior, we bounced a check to Rainbow Records. Rainbow Records was a company that did manufacturing of units, of vinyl and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So we wrote a check for $75,000 and it bounced. When it bounced, I said to him, do you want me to cancel the check and then we'll either do a certified check or however we want to do it? He said, no, I'll take care of it. Well, long story boring, he never canceled the check. So what happened was we were hot, records were out, we're on Billboard charts, Rainbow Records, they read what's going on, they put the check through, and it cleared. And P forgot that there was some, and you have to understand, back then it wasn't like you go online or you go on your phone to look at the bill. We had to get the check. We had to go get. In fact, I think I had to go to get the bank to get the check, and because they hadn't sent it out yet or something to that effect. Because I think we signed that where we didn't need to see all the checks or something like that. So we went and got the check. It was like, oh, this is a check from a year ago, and he was like, and even though he was accusatory, he never apologized, but it was like, whatever. He was wrong. No one tried to steal any money from him. No one was stealing money from the bank account. We're fine.
Okay.
So fast forward back to the situation with Big Ed. Big Ed has a conversation. He's going to pay me the $200,000 that he owes me for the credit card. He's going to pay me the $200,000 that he owed me on record sales. I'm going to start my label. He's going to go off into the sunset and do his thing with the guys, and I'll never see these guys. I'm going to move in a different direction. So I'm home the next morning, really early. King George calls me. And I was like, dude, what happened? He was like, well, P was mad that I didn't break your jaw and I wouldn't do it, so he kicked me out of the crew.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what? He said, yeah, he kicked me out the group. He believed Ed. And it was more like he was hurt because, you gotta understand, P and King hustled. King went to jail and didn't snitch and did 2 years in Texas for him. When they both got involved in something, he did 2 years in Texas for him. So King was the most loyal guy to Master P on the planet.
Right.
So here I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna get my $400,000, take care of my credit card situation, get my money for my label. I'm gonna go find me a new artist. I'm gonna go make this thing happen. So King says, "That's it, man." He told me I'm out the group, and I can't believe that he would do this to me, knowing that I didn't do anything. He said, "I can't believe he would do." He was like, "I can't even believe he'd do this to you." I'm completion.
One of the most loyal people.
I mean, not one of the most. The most loyal person you could imagine. So at that time, him and I are attached at the hip, whether we like it or not. At no time, and so when I watched the Chronicles, at no time did King George and I ever talk about doing an album together. Never. At no time, and first you have to understand, King was so loyal to Pete. If I would have mentioned doing an album with somebody or leaving or I'm a still artist or whatever, then King probably would have beat me up. That's how loyal he was to P. So the fact that he thought that King and I were trying to start on, it was just the most ridiculous thing in the world. And I think to this day, because I've had conversations with other people about this, I have no idea why because him and Ed at that time, they were cool, but they weren't tight like he and King or he and I. So he basically told us, good luck, it's hard. We were left on our own. And, he cleared out bank accounts with both our names on it, which is fine. He was able to do that. There was another account that I had that I was running the management from that he cleared that out, that both our names are out. So there's no money anywhere. King, I'm 24 years old. I've got a baby on the way. I'm $200,000 in debt. And nobody wants to, everybody at that time wants their money up front because I'm TC. I was with No Limit. No Limit's hot. You got to have a ton of money. And I didn't. I was stuck at zero, and as well as King. And that's when, honestly, I start calling everybody who I thought that, would have went ahead and did a project with us basically on the back end where we would record the album, release it, and then we'd pay them as we got record sales. They all turned me down. I had a conversation with St. Charles, E40's uncle, who had sold a lot of records, and he knew I was responsible for a lot of records. He turned me down. And not recently, until after the No Limit Chronicles came out, I had said, man, why did you, I was kind of hurt. And I said, why wouldn't you do the King George record? He said, Tobin, I called everyone and nobody wanted to do the record. Nobody thought that King could do an album. And even P said we need to do some more development with King because he had said, oh man, King's great at the hooks, King's great at the skits, but nobody wants to hear King for a whole album. Well, at this stage of the game, what else did I have? I'm 24 years old with a baby on the way and bills due. King had bills due. It was like, okay, what are we going to do? So we went through this process of reaching out to everyone. Everyone said no. And finally, one guy, Anthony A.K. Walker, who I probably could have got a whole album done for about $2,000, said yes because we didn't have any money. So We go to work. We start recording. I'm going out meeting with distributors while we're recording, and nobody wants to record. Nobody wants to record. Nobody wants to record. We finished the album. It's called Life of a Kingpin. We've been promoting the album Life of a Kingpin, since we were at No Limit. Everybody knew we were coming out with Life of a Kingpin, but nobody, for whatever reason, if it was because we weren't with P, because people didn't believe in King, and it's not like, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not like King believed in me and I probably didn't believe in him, but we were attached at the hip because we had to get out of this hole we were in. Right. And I was really in the main hole because I had bill collectors calling me every day. And anyone who's ever been behind on bill collectors and they're calling and threatening your life and not really your life, but your livelihood. And I'll never be able to get an apartment again or buy a house or anything with this kind of debt. And when you think about, for everyone who's watching, you think about $200,000 in 1996. $200,000 is a lot of money today in 2020. In 1996.
And let me throw this out there: when people are talking about that America doesn't give us chances, that's a pretty damn big chance right there.
I agree. So Anthony A.K. Walker, we produce the album, we get it done. No one will pick up the record. So here I am with an album done. I owe a percentage to this producer, and I go out and I never pulled the cart before the horse except for this time, because usually what happens is I would promote the record, find out how many units people want, and then you press the units, and you have a little bit higher percentage just in case, so you don't have to do a reorder on the cassettes or CDs or vinyl. Mm-hmm. So I get a $10,000 credit card from my girlfriend at the time's mother, who became my wife. And she had a credit card that had $10,000 limit on it. And I talked to her and she said, I'll give it to you. She's like, well, how are you going to pay this $10,000 back? And in the back of my mind, I was like, how am I going to pay the $10,000 back? How am I going to pay the $200,000 back? And I just said, somehow, some way, I will do it. I grab her credit card. I pressed up these cassette CDs and vinyl posters and stuff. And nobody wants to record. I get a phone call from Southwest Wholesale down in Houston, Texas, and they said, we'll take a few copies. So I sent them a few copies. I get a call a few weeks later. I'm sitting there, and the record's not selling. I'm like, what am I going to do? There was this guy in Kansas City, and shout out to the folks in Kansas City who always showed us love at No Limit Records and at Me and My Entertainment with King George. This guy named Myron, who ran a little one-stop, said, I'll buy units from you for $2 a CD and $1 cassette, and I'll send it COD. Well, I kind of said, look, if you make it 3 and 2, you got a deal. Now, here's a funny story. At that time, I'm naive. I don't know how COD works. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that I'm supposed to set it up where he can't pick up the product until he leaves a check for the COD.
Okay.
So I send him the cassettes and CDs, and I don't get any money for it. So that's talk about being naive. Right. So he's got these CDs and cassettes, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And I didn't even realize it was an issue until I was talking to my brother. He's like, dude, you didn't set up COD? I said, yeah, I sent it to him. He's going to send the COD. He's like, well, you didn't set up COD. I'm like, now here's me running a record label that, at No Limit Records was selling, thousands and thousands of records, and we're making this money, and we're doing these things, and I didn't realize about COD. Crazy, right? So luckily, Myron, like I said, I don't know his last name. He sent me the money for the COD CDs cassette. He wired it to me. So as soon as he got it, he said, I got it. I'm gonna wire it to you right now. I'm like, okay. So he wires it. And we take that cash, I put some money in King's pocket, some money into my pocket so we can pay some bills. And then we fly to San Antonio, Texas, and we go down I-10. We stop in Houston, and then we go down to Galveston a little bit, and we come back up. We go to New Orleans, we work our way all the way. We go to Mobile, we go all the way to Pensacola, and come all the way back. Took us about two and a half weeks. Get back to California, and about a week after that, I got a call from Southwest Wholesale. named Mark Gammon. He was the guy there who did all the buying of the product. He says, "Man, I need X amount of units." I shipped him everything I had, and then he was like, "Oh my God, it's going out the door. I need more units." And I ordered more units and more units. So I just started, and basically because we were able to kind of pay, and the manufacturer, we were using new Southwest Wholesale. And I finally had a conversation with Mark. I said, "Until you give me some money, I'm not going to be able to pay for all these albums that you want." So they sent me a check, and I was able to pay back the credit card. I was able to pay for more manufacturing, and then King and I could go back on the road. Nice. And in a matter of, after we got back from California, they ordered all that, and we reordered, and we were able to get stuff in another couple of weeks. About a month after that, we hit the Billboard charts. Now, it took a few months, but we hit the Billboard charts. We were like 80, I think we were at 80 on the Billboard chart. And we were hot, and everybody was excited, and we're starting to make money. And I think the challenge with that situation was, King still wanted to be with P because he loved him. That was his brother. And no matter what we did or how the success we had, he was frustrated. So I'll give you an example. Okay. If we're 80 on the Billboard charts, and I think this is interesting, but if we're 80 on the Billboard charts, P is at 13, right?
Right.
We're at 69 on the Billboard charts. P is at number 1. We perform in front of 5,000 people and make $9,000. And P is performing at the summit, where the Rockets, the Houston Rockets, the NBA team, used to play in front of 15,000 people. And I honestly thought that frustrated King so much because he was on this. And understand, Master P had a big Priority deal that we signed when we were together. And Priority, they think about it. They had did all the NWA stuff, and they were. They had did all the Ruthless stuff and the Ice Cubes and all that stuff. So they were huge. And we were just me pressing up units, getting them out there, going on the road, King and I, like back to back, like Batman and Robin, promoting. So even though we were making a lot of money, we were still in a situation where we weren't able to get the things we wanted to get to and do. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing about the story with the producer, AK, we paid him $87,000 for his work that he did for us.
Wow.
Now, the reason why I say that, and he was owed the money. He was owed the money. We paid him. It's fine. Not a big deal. But think about it. If I had $3,000 in my pocket, I could have just paid him $3,000, and he would have signed the release of all the songs, and we would have owned 100% of the songs instead of owning 50%.
Right.
So for him, he made $87,000. He's feeling pretty good about himself.
Yeah, I could imagine.
And don't get me wrong, we made a lot of money too. King and I made a significant amount of money. So we're not complaining, we're not hating, but that kind of stuck in King George's craw, because he was like, before, this dude's doing he's doing a song for $200 a song.
Yeah.
Now he's a Billboard charting, right? He's a Billboard charting producers, and he's charging people $1,000 to $1,500 a song. Because we're on the Billboard charts and we're hot, right?
Right.
Oh, come back to California, album's hot. We go to this, I go to this place, and it's called Durant Square. It's kind of like a flea market, if you will. And there was a gentleman from China. His name was Leo. Now, Leo used to make all the No Limit gear that you see. Especially in the California Times and even in the Down South Hustlers, you see all the No Limit hats, the jackets, the leather coats, all that. Yeah, T-shirts, all that stuff. Leo was the guy. So Leo made all that stuff. So I was in, at this time, P's 13, we're 80, we're on the Billboard charts. People know who we are. They don't understand it because they don't understand what the single is, because because when we meet with record companies, because we were meeting with record companies at that time, and they would say, "What's your single?" And I would tell them, "I'm not here to sell singles. I only sell albums. I don't have a single. I'm here selling albums." I'm in Durant Square, and actually I'm with the producer AK, and P comes around. He has 8 guys with him. There's a total 9 of them. So P comes around the corner, and here's the thing: never had a problem with P. We were like family. We split. The only thing that was a problem, I was still waiting on my money. He still owed me $400,000, and not to mention, there was an apartment that I got. The apartment that I got for the folks, and I don't know who did this, but the apartment was damaged, and the manager called me and said, either you pay for the damages, or I'm calling the sheriff's office.
So you're talking about the apartment that you had to sign for, because you're looking at this like it's a business deal. We're all doing this. We're all in this together. I signed for this for you. And basically, the people that you had in that apartment, or whoever they had in that apartment, trashed the damn thing.
Correct. So I'm not saying it was Mia X or Servon or whoever, but whoever that they had in the apartment trashed it, and they were telling me I needed to pay for that or figure that out, or they were going to call a sheriff's department. Now understand, I'm not a street guy, and I grew up, my dad was in the military, and I grew up in Europe, and I spent some time in New York because my mom's from New York, some time in DC because my dad's in DC, and I lived in Texas for a little bit. But I'm like an American dude from Germany who's a square, who knows nothing about the legal system. And they're talking about calling the sheriff. I'm like, oh my God, well, I got to figure this thing out. So P comes around the corner in this mall. I'm over there with Leo. And he was like, hey, I saw him first. I was like, hey. He was like, hey. Now, I think we both were shocked we saw each other.
Right.
So it was like, no, so it almost like he immediately went on the defensive. Because he owes me $200,000 on a credit card, plus he owes me for this apartment, and he owes me my $200,000. We're at the $400,000. I still haven't got my money. It's several months. I've got a hit record, and I'm making money, but, $400,000.
That's
at the very minimum, I'm gonna be honest with you. If he would have just gave me the $200,000, so I didn't have to deal with this American Express and sending me collections and all that stuff, I would have been cool with that.
Because that's something you could have at least walked away from, moved on, learned from, and then just keep building yourself into something better.
Yes. So here's what happens. He sees me, I see him, and I said, hey, we need to talk. And he keeps asking me, like, who you with? And I'm like, and I know I got the producer guy with me, but I'm like, I'm not trying to get him involved in anything. I was like, what are you talking about? Why do you keep asking me this? Well, he's wondering if King George is with me.
Oh,
that's his mindset. That's why he keeps asking me, who you with? Where you at? What's going on? Like he's a little bit kind of whatever. And I said, look, we got to talk about some things. Why don't we go? And I'm at this counter, right? I said, why don't we go in this corner and we talk it out? He said, why you want to go take me over to the corner? I said, well, we got private business to talk about. He said, well, whatever you want to talk about, you could talk in front of everybody. I said, do you want them knowing about our business? He said, yes. I said, well, what about the American Express and the money you owe me for the record sales? And after that, he was like, well, who you with, man? Who you? I said, no. I said, we're talking about this. He said, you know what? Okay, let's talk over here. So he comes over, and my back's to the wall, and I'm thinking we're going to the corner to talk. He hits me out of nowhere. Who hit
you?
Master P. He hits me.
Whoa.
So what happens is, I go to grab him because the reflection, I'm trying to hit him, and I kind of swipe at him and hit like the back of his head, and he kind of moves out. Well, the rest of these No Limit guys come, and then they start hitting me. So like anything, my father was in the military. I do know how to carry myself. I'm 6'4.5", so I'm not a little guy. And I'm covering up, hitting back, covering up, hitting back. And I happen to grab a guy, and and I grab him and I start kind of hitting him, and all these guys are swinging and hitting me. But the crazy thing is, they've got the guy that I'm holding, The guy that I'm holding, they're hitting him more than they're hitting me. So I got like a little scratch on my face and maybe a little bit of a bruise, but the person who took the brunt of that was this guy I'm holding, right? I'm using him to shield myself.
Because they're just swinging and throwing at this point.
They're just swinging and blowing. He's getting the business.
Dang.
So I see he has this gun, and the gun falls down on the ground. Now, I'm not a street guy. I don't know anything about that. I've shot guns before because, military family and all that stuff. I took ROTC, so I'm very familiar. So I go down to grab the gun, not to shoot anybody, but just to get these cats off me, right?
Right.
Someone kicks the gun, and then I get hit, and then there's a stick like right next to me, and those retail sticks that you put up real high when, like, if you ever been to the mall and you see them putting those shirts way up high, and they have that retail stick, that happens to be one of them next to me. So I pick this thing and I start swinging, right? And I start hitting people and I start swinging. And what happened was, these guys pull their guns out. And here I'm thinking like, I'm going to get shot. And I'm like, I want to make my way to one of these guys. I got to get to one of these guys before they shoot me. Well, the one thing I guess I can thank Master P for, he told those guys, don't pop them, don't shoot TC. The police are coming.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys, they're kind of looking around and they're seeing if the police are around. And P says, let's get out of here. They put their guns away and they all run.
So you're talking about basically like a 6-on-1 fight.
It was really more like an 8-on-1 fight because he had 8 guys with him, was 8 deep.
Well, I don't know if I could even ask this. Did you recognize any of them?
I recognized a few of them, but I mean, some of these guys were like the new crew, the new Orleans crew. Relative to P, guys that were now watching us back. King wasn't in the picture, I wasn't in the picture, and then they ran. So that was so understand this. I've never had a disagreement with Master P other than when he says, that's it, I want my company back. And then I see him a few months later. All I want is just to get the money that's owed to me, specifically the credit card, and then he hits me and these guys jump me.
So was that his way of saying that he wasn't going to pay you, or did you get paid, or
I never, to this day, 20 some odd years later, I've never received one check from Master P after we split up. There were no checks. I've never received it. Someone had told me after the No Limit Chronicles, well, yeah, man, you and P are cool now, right? He took care of you because this one person knew what the situation was. I was like, no, I never did. He was like, man, P told me he was going to take care of you. I said, well, he never did. So to this day, and there's no animosity now because we're either pushing 50 or we're in our 50s. So there's no animosity. There's nothing. I've moved on my life. I have a pretty great life. But telling this story at the time, I'm really disappointed. I'm hurt. I'm frustrated. I'm still $200,000 in the hole, and not quite 200 because I'm making payments. But it's like I got a baby on the way. And this is what we're dealing with. Wow. So police come, they ask me questions. I just tell them the truth. I said, this is what happened. This is who it is. And Leo, the Asian guy. So to understand, the producer's there behind the counter with Leo, seeing everything. AK is looking at seeing everything. And when AK tells the story, because my boys show up later, my godbrother and his crew, and he used to own a store called Kicking It. He came through and they were like ready to get down, right? And AK is telling the whole story, man. You should have seen Tob, man. He was this and that, and TC this and that, and one of my godbrother's best friends who worked with him at the store was like, well, what the heck are you doing? And he called me his brother. While my brother is taking this fight, he was like, man, them dudes had guns. I was invested with them. So from that point, people looked at me completely different, like I was a street guy. I never was. It was like, and people, even though I'm 6'4.5", nobody ever saw me as a big guy. They just, I was just the guy, taking care of business. So after that, Leo even asked me, he was like, he's Chinese guy, broken English. He was like, why would P do that to you? Like you guys were close. You always took care of each other. And I was like, dude, I don't even know. So police come. I tell them what happened. They're saying, why are you hanging out with these guys? I said, clearly I'm not. Clearly we're not friends. And P went down to Los Angeles. So whatever reason, King wasn't around, but I talked to King, and King happened to come down, and he was like, where they at, and trying to find him, but I found out later that he went to LA, and I was working on a magazine project with a guy named Mongo Nicole, who worked at 4080 magazine, and a guy named Waylon Southern, who was like a DJ. It was called Hip Hop versus the World. It was like this, we had this vision of this hip hop magazine, and Too Short's retirement party was on a Saturday, I think it was, if I remember correctly. So we all flew down to LA for this retirement party. And it was crazy because, like I said, I wasn't hurt. I just had a little scratch and a little bit of a bruise, but nothing that you could really see that was anything, because the guy I was holding was carrying, was getting most the brunt of all the hits. Yeah. So we show up to, we interview. So we go down Friday. Actually, we interview Too Short for a thing in the magazine. We talk to him. We have a conversation. We show up to the party. Now the party, it was huge. Everybody was there. All kinds of record executives, all kind of industry people. Tupac was there. Like everybody you can imagine was there. Mm-hmm. Well, P was there with his boys. So at this point, I am furious because someone said, "Man, I think I saw P earlier." And I was like, "Where is he?" And I will say this: I am not a street guy. I'm not a fighter guy. I'm not a gun-toting guy. Never have been. But at that moment, I was so furious. I was like, I don't care if he had 20 people with him. We're gonna do something. Mm. Now he wound up leaving before, because I heard that he heard that I was there, and I don't know if that's true or not. That they said, well, he said you was there, and he didn't want to get in a confrontation with you in front of all these people, which is good because he was the one who was probably more level-headed at that point, and I was just furious, and he left. I hadn't heard from P and hadn't talked to him since. We haven't had a conversation in all these years. So the question people ask me, they're like, well, why didn't you sue P? He owed you this money. So I'll tell you this. Okay. I saw 8 attorneys to try to sue P. And I will tell you, all 8 of them turned me down. Now we're not going to take it. It was a concern because he was a priority, and he, at that point he had a lot of money and he was rocking and rolling. And on the 8th attorney, there was this black guy, and he was in San Francisco. I was in San Francisco, and I was like, and at this point, I'm furious. I'm hurt. I sit down with this attorney, and he's the 8th guy, literally the 8th guy that I've had a conversation with, whether either on the phone or in person. Mm-hmm. He says to me, he says, clearly you're owed. I'm looking at this paperwork. Clearly I'm looking at these bills you're owed, but I'm going to tell you this. He said, P's at a point, Master P's at a point, he's got money. He's got these records out. He's too valuable to priority. And they would keep you in court so long, even if you saw money, you would be spending most of your money paying me. I mean, this is the greatest, I think at this point, the greatest advice he gave me. He says, look, I know you're hurt, and I know you're frustrated, and I know you're owed. I agree with you. But this is a bitter pill to swallow. But look at you. You're on Billboard charts. You're starting a magazine. You're doing all these things. You need to swallow the bitter pill and move on. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. And as frustrating as it was and upset as I was at that moment, I did. Now, one thing we did do a diss record, and it's something I didn't want to do. But then when King was upset, then I was upset, and then we just said, okay, we're going to do a diss record. Mm. Now, we did do a diss record. It came out. It did well. And then after that, we were done with it. We said what we had to say. We dropped the mic. We were done. It was over.
Can I ask you this? Do you mind giving us the name of the record?
It's called 31 Flavors. It's by King George and Callie G. It's not my finest moment, but I'm 24 at the time and I'm upset. I'm young, baby on the way. Guy owes me money. And you have to understand, I gave everything and gave my all to the label. And I was running the label and managing him and taking care of everything. And then to not even that. So there are other artists that say, hey, P owes me money. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But my situation was different because I will tell you, I had a quantifiable number that was owed to me. And I give up my credit. I give up my time. I put these ideas with him and we blow this thing up. And I'm the guy that gets attacked. And I'm the guy that is stuck with the bill and he ghosted me.
So how do you feel about the Chronicles, basically the way that they told your story? Because you didn't tell your story. They told your story or in a manner of speaking for you. What did you hear and how did you feel about it?
Well, there's a couple things that I heard with the story. One is that I was just a front guy and I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't do anything. And I will reiterate, from 89 to 93, no one was talking about P, but from 93, 94 to 96, and then obviously with the rise of No Limit, when they talked about the rise of No Limit, I was there and I was running everything, and P and I were side-by-side partners, so that was something. And the other piece of it was, I was this guy that was trying to take over the company. So I sat down with No Limit with the producers of the project for 5.5 hours. At first they said, hey, we want to talk to you for an hour. They kept asking me questions and it went on for 5.5 hours. And I gave them I gave them the truth, the information, the truth. And they even asked me about certain things that happened. Well, we heard that you were there when this happened to this. And I would say, yes, that's happened. That's what we did, or no, or I'm not aware of that. I wasn't there, or whatever, for 5.5 hours. So when you watch the No Limit Chronicles, it looks like I was a guy that didn't know what I was doing, and then I was trying to take over the company. So my thought process, and I want other people to understand, which is it? Am I the novice business guy that doesn't know anything, or am I this diabolical genius that's trying to take over the company or do a hostile takeover like this was some sort of soap opera, right?
Right.
So that's how I perceived. The other piece of it too was, I never had a conversation with any artist about leaving No Limit Records, ever. King and I never had a deal. King has done interviews and he'll tell you we never ever had a deal. In fact, he'll even tell you he never wanted to work with me, but he had to because that's all we had was each other. So those are the three things. One is I didn't know what I was doing. Two is I tried to steal the artists, and the third thing is that I was that type of person that was going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will tell you, I was willing to kind of be like, okay, it's Hollywood. Someone's got to be the bad guy. Why not let it be me? And after all these years, I'm not even mad about the fight. I'm not mad about the money. It is what it is. It was a bitter pill, but I handled it and I swallowed it, and I took care of business and sold a lot of records, and I was able to do some great things. But I think what frustrated me is when Master P went on the tour of all these Access Hollywood and all these different TV shows and the Breakfast Club and all this stuff, and people are asking him, because King George got very emotional in the episode, how he couldn't believe P left him, and he teared up, and the story's heartfelt, and everyone's saying, oh my God, you and your best buddy King George, and you split, and he's so emotional, and he's like, it broke my heart, it broke his heart. And then he says, but he got with the manager guy, and the manager guy was in his ear, and he's blaming the manager guy.
Oh wow.
Now, he never says my name, but we know I'm the manager guy. I'm the guy. And that never happened. That never happened. I never was in a situation where I was talking to artists. I never even, anything I was doing, trying to put together publishing deals or whatever, that was something that if I made a buck, he's going to get a piece of that. Anything, when they made a buck, I got 15% of that. That's how the whole deal worked. So I think my frustration about the No Limit Chronicles, they glossed over all of the things that were done. All of the things that were done by myself, even some of the things done by King George and other producers and people like EA Ski and those who were part of the journey. Now, I will say I did get a phone call. They called me 3 times, and I turned them down twice because I wasn't interested in doing an ode to Master P. Master P is the hardest working guy you'll ever meet. You'll never meet anyone like him. You'll never outwork him. He is relentless, and he's great at what he does. But why would I want to, give this ode to somebody who put me in a situation in debt and left me stuck for dead? Yeah. Why would I do that?
That could have ruined anybody else.
Could have. I mean, being in that kind of debt in 1996 at 24 years old, it could have. If I was, someone different, I could have done something to hurt myself, or who knows, did something that put me in jail, or that because I was desperate. But I think the thing that was frustrating when you're trying to blame me, like all of these things happened to me, and I'm the bad guy. And that's at that point I said, okay, I was okay with the No Limit Chronicles, even though it was completely inaccurate. And look, Master P is Master P. He's not going to bring me on board if I'm not adding value. And clearly I was there from the time that things took off and getting the deal and doing the negotiation and doing all that stuff. And I was influential in putting the Master P name on these albums that wound up blowing up. I was influential in saying, no, don't sign this artist deal. I think, the portrayal of him and I meeting with the Cash Money guys, that was funny. But yeah, we did meet with them and we wanted to do a deal with them. But I think how I was portrayed was like I was this guy. Like I said, which is it? If I'm the novice business person, or am I the diabolical genius that's trying to take over the company? Mm. And I was a person who had ideas and strategies and focused on the core competency of what No Limit was. I think P did a fantastic job of taking some of the concepts that we worked together. Like even the I'm Bout It movie, we went and met with all the movie studios, and they were not interested in I'm Bout It.
I would love for you to explain that part. So without me really going into any detail, I would love to hear about how that kind of came about. As far as the whole band in theaters and all of that good stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So at the time, we went to all the movie studios. So Friday was out. It was popular. A buddy of mine, a guy who actually directed my movie, The Reverend Do Wrong Ain't Right, who also did a couple of videos for us at No Limit, he said, man, you guys are selling records. You guys should just do a movie and just put it out, on DVD or CD. I mean, DVD or VHS. I was like, no, that sounds like a good idea. So I went to P and I said, hey, David Grisham thinks we should do this. I think we could do it too. So he said, oh, that's a great idea. Friday's Out's popular. So what do? We go and meet with because we were, TRU was popping, and it's like, okay, we've got a name. We're doing something. And Friday was popular. Movie studios were willing to listen. They were looking for urban movie. So we went to all these places. They were not interested at all. They were like, no, we're not going to do that. So after our last meeting, I turned to P and I said, look, check this out. I said, if we just made an authentic movie, doesn't matter how good it is, if we just made this movie, as long as we had a good soundtrack, the soundtrack will sell it, and we'll just tell people it's banned from theaters. So if it's banned from theaters, everybody's just going to go buy this DVD and buy this soundtrack.
Wow. So I remember when this came out, and I remember when it said, when I remember looking at it, it said banned in theaters. I was like, wow, I have to get this. And I think I got it from Blockbuster Video at the time when they actually existed. That was the thing that actually caught my attention. So that was actually more like a marketing ploy. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a marketing ploy because, you saw the movie. The movie wasn't great. Neither of us knew. And honestly, by the time the movie came out, I was no longer affiliated with Master P and No Limit. Mm. So what happened? At that time, we're trying to put this all together. Neither of us knew how to write a movie script. Neither of us knew how to put together a movie. I understood it understood production because my background's in broadcasting and communication. So I understood production, but I had never made a movie before. But Moon Jones, who wrote and directed the movie, was his basketball coach, his AAU coach. And Moon Jones was a comedian. He wasn't huge, but he was well known on the comedy circuit. And he said, hey, my old basketball coach knows how to write a movie. Let's get with him. And that's what we got with Moon Jones, and then started putting this whole thing together. But we split before that movie came out.
And that was Officer Friendly for people who don't know.
Yes, Officer Friendly. That's right.
Yep.
But that movie was done, and the reason why it said banned in theaters, not because it was really banned in theaters, it was because it was a marketing ploy to get people to buy it, and they buy the soundtrack. It was all about we talked about the value pack. I would always say, and this was a little bit more St. Charles, but I always pushed that. I said, look, if you have our album and you have Ice Cube's album, and Ice Cube has 11 tracks, and it is $18.98, and we have 20 tracks or 21 tracks for a double CD, and we're charging $16.98 or $17.98 for a double CD, we've got a chance to get in on some of Ice Cube's sales for that week.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the concept. So yeah, banned in theaters was not really banned in theaters. It was just a way to get. I'm sure Master P is very happy that you did.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't see any money from that either. So,
man, yes, absolutely. I can't tell you how much stuff I bought. About the only thing I never did do was sending in money to try to get T-shirts. That's about the only thing I did not do.
Well, we always made sure, if it's very rare, people, when I was there, I always made sure people got their T-shirts. So as soon as we got a check from them, back then they'd only give us a check or they'd send cash, which was funny. And so the $20, $40, whatever it is, I always made sure I had the envelopes at the office and put it in there. I'd take it to the post office and make sure everybody got their stuff.
Nice.
That was important to me. That was important to P. Fans were everything to us. If we did a concert in the early days, we do a concert and there'd be like 20 people, we would do the best show we could, and we try to give out stuff. And I mean, we do a show in front of 20, 30 people and give out 30. We give out 30 CDs and 30 T-shirts, and we literally lost money. But it was the customer or the fan was the most important part. And we always made sure if someone spent their money, they got their money's worth. That's why they got the value back.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I don't really know how much else you want to add. I think you have told us a significant amount. Clearly that was not told in the Chronicles, but just really just for people who are like me, who really just love the education, not only about the South, but about No Limit, the whole thing that kind of went on there in this particular period of time. Like I say, is really interesting to me because, like I say, I grew up on that music. I started listening to Master P in some of those failed projects, you know what I mean, kind of early on. But like I say, just the whole genesis of it coming up into even like now, I followed it. It's interesting to me. I know more people out there will probably like to see and hear this or whatever. So I do hope that people click the like, share, subscribe, not only to hear, this missing part of the story, but just, to continue to share and just kind of follow what you and currently what you got going on. Do you want to remind people what you have going on right now, or any products you got, websites or anything?
Absolutely. So I've got the Costen and Hammer Network, CHN. It is podcasts, it's comedy, it's a variety of things, and we're really focused on raising money, and that money is for the Special Olympics. So if you may know someone who's challenged, and maybe they're part of the Special Olympics. They do such great work. So one of my former students, Josh Hammer, has now become my partner on this project, Costen and Hammer Network, and we're really focused on giving back to the community and really doing something with that great cause. The other thing is, only in California, if you are in California, we have Psycho Cider. It's a hard cider, 6.7% alcohol. less than 3 grams of sugar. It's California apples picked, pressed with different flavors. We have Mother of Dragons, which is raspberry dragon fruit, and Kiwi Herman, which is kiwi lime. You can get that in California. At first we were always in on premise, and we had kegs. Now we have cans.
Okay.
There's a few artists that I help. One named JLN, great young up and coming musician and singer and artist. Kazi, who has had some success. Cozzy, great rapper. And Ben Trax is a producer, hip hop as well as EDM. Those guys are great. So I will just say, just working on those projects, trying to get back to the community. If you could do something with something in community, whether it's Special Olympics or Make a Wish, just do something to give back. That's important. So I just want to say thank you very much for allowing me to kind of tell my story. And I think ultimately, if it wasn't for the Chronicles itself, it is what it is. But when we're going on a tour and folks are saying the manager did this and the manager did that, I just thought it was important for me to have conversations around that. So thank you very much for allowing me to use your platform to talk about the things that I've done and the successes I've had. And don't forget to check out the Reverend Do Wrong Ain't Right. It's for free on YouTube at the Costen and Hammer Network. So thank you so much.
I will absolutely show that again. And if you don't mind, I want to give a quick shout out to my guy, Kurt. So hopefully he gets a chance to watch this, man, for not only for reaching out and just to let people kind of know I had did an interview that was on the channel, and I will put this into our playlist, into the No Limit playlist, so you guys can find this interview a little bit easier. But he had saw an interview that I did. He reached out, he emailed me, I think the day before I went to New Orleans, and we got an opportunity to kind of speak. And again, I'm gonna say this: I'm humbled, I'm honored, and thank you so much for having a level of trust and in my platform and coming on and speaking your story.
Absolutely, thank you. I'm humbled too, and anytime I have an opportunity to talk to folks, I have no problem with having an honest conversation with folks. So I appreciate your time.
One person has one more question. Let me ask this: are you currently looking for any artists right now? Or should artists seek you out or seek your company out or anything like that? Like, what are you doing with artists?
So only thing I'm doing is kind of assisting. So if I'm not looking for artists. I am retired from the music industry. But if there's something, if you have a sound or something, and I could forward you on to someone to help you out, I would definitely do it. So you can get on my website. It's my first name, Tobin, Tobin. My last name, Costen, Costen.com. TobinCosten.com. You can shoot me a message there. If you got to music, you can also go on my Instagram, Tobin Costen. Pretty simple. So if you hit me on Instagram at Tobin Costen or hit me at TobinCosten.com, you can easily reach out to me. And if you've got some music or something, I could probably forward it to somebody that may be interested in working with them. And that's pretty much about it. So I'm not in the game anymore, retired, not looking to get back in. I've just kind of support folks, young folks that are trying to put their music together. If I can help, I will.
Sounds great, man. Again, Tobin, brother, thank you so much for coming on, and you enjoy the rest of the evening, man. And I look forward to talking to you again, okay?
Sounds good. Take care, Just Jay. I appreciate you. Be safe, guys. And make sure you guys wear your mask, wash your hands, be safe. This COVID-19 is real.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye now.
Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me take myself off the screen here. And I'm going to play that movie preview again. Again, this is Reverend Do Wrong. You guys make sure and check this out. I thought it was really, really cool. And we're going to go ahead and stop the replay right here for the people on the replay. Please make sure you guys click that thumbs up. I will post this again, a little bit of a condensed version of it. But again, thank you guys so much for coming through, and y'all have a great evening.